So, on Twitter and Discord, I asked my small cluster of followers what they'd like to see me make a video for to celebrate 100 subscribers. And alongside some honourable mentions, I got a suggestion to talk about my thoughts on the original Spider-Man, because I played it last year, and I had some takes a few people disagreed with, and a few people kind of politely nodded at. See, I played an 100%ed Spider-Man on stream, and I had some really mixed feelings about it. I think it's an exceptionally well-made game, but it might be one of those games that's a little bit too well-made. It just ends up being eerily perfect, like a Christian family photo album. It's just so straight edge that it feels a little bit wrong. This bad boy reeks of having been shunted through focus group after focus group until it was completely inoffensive, completely straightened out. They took poor Petey and whipped him into shape so hard that he curdled. It's like when SpongeBob goes all smooth. There's not much bad about this game, but consequently not much that stands out, and somehow that just makes it worse. But enough waffle. I don't want you to think I dislike this game by any means, but I feel like I'm veering wildly in that direction through what I'm saying, so I'll just hop into the review itself to stop myself from bitching anymore. So here we are. 5 things I liked and 5 things I disliked about Marvel Spider-Man, and if you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe to me here on YouTube and tell me about your experience with Spider-Man in the comments. Also, feel free to head over to my Twitch channel and chat more about games in real time, live, and beware, massive spoilers for the entire game. Anyway, without further ado, let's go. You'd be surprised how much of a rarity it can be for a AAA game to have well-written characters with well-written chemistry. For every expertly characterized game like The Witcher 3, not that I'd have expected a normie like you to have heard of such a hidden gem, there are thousands of Assassin's Creed Valhallas full of the same brown-haired, basic outfitted cast of clones, all with names you can barely remember and motivations you couldn't give a shit about. An example you probably wouldn't expect to see here would be Horizon Zero Dawn, a game I actually love, and the game that finally tipped me into wanting to start streaming on Twitch, but a game whose side quests I avoided like the plague because the characters were so boring. For a game about robot dinosaurs, it really goes over and above in terms of being fucking dull sometimes. All the side characters felt like they'd been written by the same person. Everyone likes and trusts Aloy almost immediately, even though we're told she's an outcast. Everyone listens to her and takes her advice. No one really disagrees with her in any big or small issue. Everyone seems to have the same opinions, and it even feels like they speak with the same verbal prose. It just felt homogenized, like it was written by one person. You could argue it's because the gene pool after an apocalypse of this scale probably has the width of a moon cup, but in my opinion, personality isn't genetic, so no. Not with Marvel Spider-Man. Spider-Man isn't like that. Every character is memorable, every character has a very distinct feel, every character speaks genuinely. From the quieter moments of Peter and MJ sat in a cafe having their adorable awkward dinners together, to the screaming villains running around in big rubber suits, it all feels genuine and well done. Like with a lot of Marvel properties, the story feels like it's happening after a big event, but before another one. MJ and Peter have broken up, Uncle Ben is dead, spoilers, and Harry has vanished, so it feels weirdly as though we've arrived at the end of one story, but as Miles' tragic backstory unfolds in front of us and he gets his powers for the first time, it's like it's setting the scene for his own game. We're in this weird limbo. As a result, no one really has a proper tangible character arc, but they're still very lovable within their own right, and you want them to succeed. The voice acting is exceptionally well done, the mocap stuff is great, the chemistry feels real and honest, and it makes you really care about these characters. The dialogue feels reasonable, not so realistic that people are pausing to blow their nose and stuff or popping to the toilet or having a conversation pause every now and again, but also not hacky enough that we're getting Ben 10 one-liners every 6 seconds. It's a good balance, and it really does a service to these characters. Having played a mountain of other AAA titles with the most vanilla characters available, I was honestly really genuinely surprised to meet a cast of people I liked spending time with.
I'm sorry I'm late.
Now, don't get me wrong, Dr. Octavius isn't here because I dislike him. I love him. I just think they did him so dirty here, and I want to talk about that. Dr. Octavius is a man well and truly down on his luck. He's a beautiful soul who wants to use his brains to make something that will genuinely really help people, and by proxy himself. He has a neurological condition that is affecting his movement and nervous system, and it is only going to get worse as he gets older. In his dying throes, he is trying to make advanced prosthetics that can be used by himself when he eventually gets too bad to move, but also be used by others who need them. He's not motivated by money, but by a genuine wish to help others. others by the prospect of furthering science and medicine, and by giving himself some relief in the face of a horrifying disease that is absolutely looming over him. He is gentle, patient, and kind. He wants to cure ailments and save the world in his own way. He is a fantastic paternal figure for Peter. He teaches him well and cares about him. He's a role model. Obviously, since Marvel has a very concrete canon and they never ever subvert expectations, it's no secret that Doc Ock is evil, and I watched his cutscenes really intently, waiting for that slow change from lawful good to chaotic evil. You see, Doc Ock has every justification to snap at any time during that game. He fights for measly grants in one of the richest cities on Earth, absolutely begging for pittances to keep his life-saving work going. An uphill battle he should never have to wage because he's a genius and his time is so better spent elsewhere. But there he is, living the life all academics struggle to tread water in, having to use more of his precious time to beg for pennies from higher-ups who just don't care about what he does. He is a caring, moral man in an unjust moral world. He co-founded Oscorp with Norman Osborn, but later left the company because Norman's an arsehole who puts profit ahead of safety and morality, and therefore left behind a comfortable life and legacy for the sake of his own personal convictions. Like Walter White in Breaking Bad, who leaves Grey Matter only to watch his friends boom in power and wealth as the company balloons after he leaves, Otto bitterly watches from the sidelines as crime pays again and again. His friend is the bad guy, but he reaps the rewards of their labour and he is never held accountable. Not only that, but Norman, using his power as mayor, puts a halt to Otto's funding, seemingly out of spite. Advanced prosthetics are no longer on the table for him, and Otto's life's work is extinguished by a playground bully who just wants to see him suffer, as his own neurological condition gets worse and worse. He wasn't just making this research for others, he wants it for himself too, knowing his sickness is catching up on him. How evil do you have to be to stop an old friend from building the cure to his own illness, Norm? Cunt. So, as you can imagine, I was watching his cutscenes very closely. When is the final straw, I thought? What is his stepping stone going to be? What will his first minor moment of evil be? Will he steal money for a grant, or threaten or beat somebody into approving him for one, and then realise that acts of evil can maybe sometimes lead to good? But then temptation crops up and he steps over the line again and again and again, loses his license to practice and his lab and goes insane? No. In the last milligram of the game, we learned that the neural implants he's developing can affect the mind so extremely that it changes the personality.
Otto, the neural web isn't isolating your motor neurons. It could be affecting other parts of your brain, your inhibitions, your mood. I just think we need some more tests.
And in the final chapter, over the course of about 5 phone calls had with Otto, while Spider-Man is swinging through the city, he turns evil because of the neural implants. Why? Why did you need to ham-fist this so badly? We had all the stepping stones we needed to watch Otto slowly twist into a villain over 25 hours. Instead, he makes a rapid and immediate change in the final minute. He could have been so interesting, but he wasn't. Sorry, Doctor. Marvel's Spider-Man features the kind of map cleanup Ubisoft is known for, a selection of 10 or so minigames all focused on different aspects of gameplay that you find across the map indicated by specific logos. In Marvel's Spider-Man, we have stealth, combat, and puzzle-based missions. Some of these are really fun, and some of them are just not that fun, but they're varied enough that, besides some outliers we'll get to later, you're never doing anything so long that you're putting the game down for 6 weeks out of annoyance. You've got your Black Cat stakeouts, where you find a camera set up at the aforementioned furry stakeout, and you need to look through her camera to find where she's placed one of her little Black Cat devices, which will show their location by doing a subtle twinkle from their position. These are really fun little bits, just cute visual puzzles to test your observation skills. Next you've got Pigeons, a quest given to you by the Walking Dead Lee's voice actor, which dredged up a shitlog of trauma I didn't know I had, thanks Telltale, which you need to swing between the buildings and catch. Some of these can be really frustrating, but it's all about mastering your web swinging ability, so they're really rewarding to achieve. There are backpacks, basically your Assassin's Creed platforming collectible that you just find around the world and pick up until a number reaches a certain total. There are landmark photos, which is a super adorable little mini game requiring you to take photographs of landmarks in the city like some kind of skin-tight onesie tourist. Very easy, very simple, but there are actually hidden photo opportunities too, i.e. photo opportunities not marked on your map that you can try and find if you're really into photography and being rewarded for needless extra labour. But I'm not about that overtime life, so I didn't bother. Then we have our research stations, a nice lore-friendly way for Spider-Man to go swinging walking through the city, examining dust clouds and water cleanliness and fixing them at their root, as environmental problems are indeed so easily just fixed at a moment's notice. Thanks, Spider-Man. We have Taskmaster challenges, an initially really irritating little side mission, especially as they foreshadow the spinball challenges in the DLC, but if you do them all you get to fight Taskmaster as a boss using your own gadgets against him. It's really cool. Taskmaster is a fair guy as well. If you don't have enough gadgets to beat him first time, he'll let you go away and come back with more, and then still somehow be annoyed at you when you come back with a full arsenal and win, like you didn't have 15 chances to smash your head in already. Taskmaster's challenges are split into two categories, stealth and combat, and the stealth ones can be super particular, essentially asking you to take down entire teams of enemies without being detected at all. I suppose it's a bit jarring because it asks you to go from quite a free-flowing and easy combat system to a very strict system of stealth, but all it's doing is asking you to master said stealth, so it's respectable. The combat ones are fairly basic, kill enemies in certain ways for certain points, but they foreshadow a mode that drove me so hard around the bend that I needed to dedicate an entire section to it. Crimes and hideouts. Crimes and hideouts. Two words that started to make me very, very miserable during my time on Marvel Spider-Man. You see, Spider-Man introduces something called hideouts. There are many different kinds of hideouts in Spider-Man. Fisk's hideouts, prisoner camps, Sable hideouts, and demon warehouses. Basically just contained rooms full of waves of enemies. And they're all really exactly the same. Several rounds with enemies that are all fairly basic, but slowly evolve into enemies with specific abilities and gimmicks that you can only beat in certain ways, i.e. big guys need to be stunned before they can be killed, flying guys need to be webbed, shield guys need to be dodged under and hit from the back, but nothing extreme, even on higher difficulties. There are so many of these in the game, but they enormously overstay their welcome after only a few. Yeah, it is a combat challenge, but even on ultimate difficulty, the mode I played it on, they are so boring that honest to god, the real struggle is just keeping your eyes open. So many times I'd fly through a hideout really easily, but I would be so bored that I would just stop focusing and be staring at a YouTube video or completely zoning out. And then I'd get grabbed and twink snapped over some guy's leg and I'd have to start the whole ordeal again. In my opinion, the real challenge of a game shouldn't be just trying to get through it without dying of boredom, and unfortunately, 35 hours into this slow-cooked diarrhea, it unfortunately will be the case. But these aren't quite the worst part of Spider-Man, and certainly not the part of Spider-Man that put me off ever playing Miles Morales, even though I've heard the sequel is seriously trimmed down and therefore Miles, get it? Better. It was the crime, or the crimes, I guess. You see, per district there are several categories of crime you need to spawn and stop. Just spawning crime can be the hardest part, especially when you're down to your last few. You just swing back and forth from district to district until your radio goes off or you see that telltale logo pop up, sometimes upwards of 10 minutes between spawns, but even without that there are just far too many for it to be fun. All crime goes basically the same, either somebody is trapped in a car, or a car chase with police, or a shootout, or a hostage situation. There are easily, what, like 100 crimes to do, maybe more? There are thug crimes, demon crimes, prisoner crimes, sable crimes, magia crimes, and hammerhead crimes. Approximately 5 per region per crime, with a grand total of maybe 100, but it felt like millions. Even taking it slowly and doing cleanup as I went, it was collectible hunting to the point of burnout in an otherwise really enjoyable game. The final push for 100% made me so sick of Spider-Man that it had the equivalent effect of that scene from A Clockwork Orange where that guy's vomiting while getting beaten up, and the rest of that film more generally.
Oh no!
This section is going to be a shorter one, but it's a plain-faced opinion and a really appealing part of the game for me. There's not much I can say on it, but let's just go ahead anyway. Now, I'm not often one for aesthetics in games, I often just tend to stick with the default character and go, but Spider-Man was really good with providing the right aesthetics in the right quantities. Not so ridiculously complex that I got overwhelmed, but with just the right kind of customization and visual appeal. You see, Spider-Man appeals to both general and hardcore fans of the Spider-Man franchise by adding in a bunch of suits from peripheral games, comics, and other media. There's the Avengers Spider-Man, the film noir Spider-Man, the Black Cat Spider-Man, the cartoon Spider-Man, and every suit comes with its own unique ability. My favourite was the Mega Nut, where he just spins in a circle and pins lots of enemies to the walls.
There was a ghost!
Once you've learned that suit's ability, you can apply it to whichever suit you want, plus other abilities of your choice, and put together an outfit and set of abilities that suits your playstyle. Certain suits give you stealth abilities, technical abilities, recon abilities, combat abilities, you name it, there's probably a suit that accommodates it, and swapping your suit when doing the different minigames and boss fights can often give you a fantastic edge. And yeah, that's basically it for this one, but those of you that have played this game will agree that it makes all the difference in providing an exciting bit of fan service and a fantastic bit of utility. Now, moving on from that comment about fantastic bit of utility, I want to talk a little bit about how that fantastic bit of utility was completely wasted on Spider-Man. And I want to remind you of the point I made earlier about it being a little too focus grouped and a little bit too perfected. You see, the combat system in Spider-Man is refined, really refined, like down to an absolute T. And the problem with ironing out all those little bumps and kinks, running it past users again and again and again, addressing every little quabble and every little issue they raise, is that you eventually end up with something so streamlined, so intuitive, that it actually becomes really boring. Because you can't please everyone, but Spider-Man tries, and in doing so, probably pleases no one, or at least not many. I played Spider-Man on the hardest mode in New Game, and then on Ultimate difficulty in New Game Plus, so my experience with Spider-Man has always been on the higher end of the difficulty it has to offer, and it really highlighted a lot of the issues with the combat. It's just too basic. It can essentially be summed as square, 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 circle, to dodge of course, then square, 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 maybe fire off some webs and stuff while you're doing it, but honestly, you can just kind of get away with the most basic fundamentals. Enemies have a bucket load of health, but they don't do insane damage until later levels, but still it means you're just whacking back and forth, tapping the same button over and over again. You honestly begin to zone out. It's not challenge, it's just inflating health in such a simple combat system. It is really, really boring, and at the higher difficulties I mentioned during those awful hideout missions, you sit there for a long time, just tapping away, trying not to let your eyes glaze over with boredom. Sure, you can make a build, but your suit abilities need to be charged through combat, meaning you're often just watching a bar increase until you can do something fun again. Throughout the campaign, you are slowly drip-fed extra abilities that you can use like drones, electric webs, and bombs, but you often have to save these for bigger enemies or special enemies that can only be taken down in certain ways or are really hard to beat without these particular items, and many of the others are in limited number. You can get a suit that causes your items to recharge in number slowly, but A, it's the final suit you unlock in the story, so particularly if you've been doing cleanup as you've been going, it's not that useful, and B, this means that you can't use the fun abilities like the Mega Nut, and have to use your one ability slot on something that maybe should just be included as part of Spider-Man's base ability pack anyway. I remember mentioning this during streams, and I had one absolute smuggo being like, well, I've put together a very elaborate build and I have fun in the combat by making the effort to needlessly use loads of combat mechanics rather than the base kit. And like, that's good for you, but the core combat is really fucking boring, and it should be fun at its foundation without you having to specifically spec into the fun build. The base kit should be fun to play. The boring combat, combined with the difficulty I played on, which can I just say shouldn't make a game more boring if anything else, combined with all the hideouts and all the crimes you have to wade through during cleanup, was the final factor in putting me off this game forever. If it was just a little bit trimmed down, a little bit more compact, a little bit less bloated, I would have walked away from this game remembering it as average, if not fun, but I walked away hating it, and I would never recommend it to anybody again. Contrary to that last point, where the combat is bloated, I want to raise my favourite part of Marvel's Spider-Man, the boss fights. The boss fights are the best part of the Spider-Man game. They're compact experiences with very little inflated health bars. The combat is always different, focusing on a bunch of gimmicks that ask you to engage with the game and its mechanics in a host of different ways, and they are really, really fun. Sure, there are a few absolute nobodies like Screwball, Kingpin, Hammerhead, and Sable. Seriously, when I saw Sable was a boss, I was confused. I swear she just talks your ear off for a while. I never remembered fighting her, but there are some absolute greats as well. Later on, the game introduces duo boss fights like Rhino and Scorpion and Electro and Vulture, where they combine their powers and you have to battle them individually, either whittling them down one at a time or tackling them very evenly. They're really, really fun. In the Electro Vulture match, you need to remain airborne basically the entire fight, a feat you probably won't be able to juggle if you fought them earlier in the game, but after practicing and probably mastering web swinging by this point, it's an almost seamless transition to an entirely airborne boss fight. Vulture dives at you and you need to be able to dodge him mid-air before punishing him hard when his back is turned. Electro has the same in-air dodge mechanic, with generators you need to destroy before smacking him when he's vulnerable. But my favourite duo boss fight is Rhino and Scorpion, taking place in a shipping yard. Rhino is the heavy-hitting powerhouse on the ground with you, charging at you, so you need to be on him all the time. But Scorpion is the fast and light-ranged attacker who spews poison from a distance and will be a real threat if left unchecked, so it's up to you whichever you attack first. The fight can get dicey without being annoying, so I found this one the most fun of them all. Mr. Negative is a brilliant, very visual fight in a black and white world with black and white Oni enemies. Mr. Negative himself takes on a huge Colossus form that he can use to destroy you, and you need to be controlling the crowd evenly while you fling items at him until he weakens enough to return to his normal form. It's really fun, and to my memory on Ultimate difficulty on New Game Plus, it was a huge pain and probably one of the harder parts of the campaign. Ultimately, a really rewarding fight with a really visually cool boss. Speaking of visuals, Dr. Octopus's fight takes place on top of a building and then all the way down the side of said building. building. It's the emotional climax of the game, which, considering the points I made before about his shoddy character arc, could have been a little bit more climaxy with the right narrative, but it's a really fun fight that introduces a new, and the final, suit of the game. What I like about Spider-Man is that it doesn't really plonk you in an arena and immediately have Spider-Man start going, there seems to be a weak spot on his back from the start, and just immediately rip the fun of figuring out the gimmick from me. Sure, if it looks like you're struggling, PT will throw some hints your way, but largely the game trusts you with these fights, which for me made them the highlight of the game. So, every game has a moment like this that goes down in history as being a bad idea. I've not played the Ocarina of Time, but sure as shit I know all about the Water Temple. Dark Souls has Blighttown, not a terrible concept, but a grueling 3 FPS first experience for any wayward player that took me weeks to escape and years off my life. Uncharted 2 has the train, or if you're playing on Brutal, every segment at all. In Spider-Man, occasionally to break up the main story if you feel like you're having a bit too much fun, you have to play as MJ, stealthing around a confined area, knocking guards out without being detected so that you can do some detecting of your own. If guards notice you, it's an immediate game over, so you have to play very, very conservatively to stay alive. Mainly because a game over in this mode is 10 times more annoying than it is actually challenging. In a game that doesn't really encourage stealth, but gives you stealth suits and stealth upgrades that you can use optionally if you prefer, the player base that didn't spend loads of time getting acquainted with the deep intricacies of the enemy stealth AI and pathing is going to have a rougher time with these. And for a game that is all about freedom, soaring through the sky, doing whatever the hell you want, suddenly being crammed into a really constrictive, basically on-rails gameplay segment is not that welcome. Not all of them are that bad, of course. The outpost that MJ stealths through isn't too bad and is basically scripted, but for example, her time in the Demon Warehouse and Norman's apartment are both fairly frustrating experiences. And it's not like the stealth is unwelcome either. You play Miles for a short while and have a stealth section with him, but it's creeping past a huge, terrifying rhino that is hunting you, ripping up vents and eerily calling to you while he walks around the shipping yard. Being a tiny little teenager in the face of a guy who can and will crush you in a second is really, really scary, and it raises the stakes so much. It's exciting. Probably weirdly one of my favourite segments of the game. But MJ just sneaks past dudes in armour. Her segments are about 3 times as long and they happen about 3 times as much, so it dries up really, really quickly. Plus, when you start to get annoyed with them and try to rush them, you'll end up having a harder time as you're getting noticed more. Despite how irritating these are, you've got to really hunker down and take them slowly, even if they make you miserable. Something that every Spider-Man game is known for is travel. All the promotional material, all the gameplay trailers, all the Let's Plays, all the PlayStation Access stuff, just swinging through the city with your webs, looking at the beautiful scenery, doing flips, chasing pigeons. And why not? The game is beautiful, the city is huge, and it's made entirely for the purpose of traversing the map. Unlike games like Dying Light, where you spend the first half of the game trying to parkour weakly around the slums, a map with about as much verticality as my IQ, Spider-Man gives you the full map from the get-go, allowing you to spend as much time as you could ever want just exploring. I respect that. You know what I respect more? Spider-Man's ability to acknowledge that you don't always want to do that. You see, when games are focused around one specific mode of traversal, the designers often have a choice to make. Do they remove the opportunity to fast travel, therefore forcing you to explore the map by foot all the time, but also make the most of the very reason you're playing the game? Or do they allow you to fast travel, thereby admitting that you might not always want to explore via the mechanics they've given you, and in a small way admit defeat that their game isn't 100% fun 100% of the time? Dying Light does the former, and it really winds me up. You might have spent 30 hours on a map, cleaning it up, sorting it out, and now you want to do a quest. This quest might ask you to run to the opposite end of the map, pick a flower, and run back. You've been there before, you've unlocked safe houses nearby, but you can't fast travel, so you run over. It's because the central mechanic of the game is parkour, and the designers just won't allow you to not get around that way. But sometimes you just kind of want to get stuff done. There are plenty of opportunities to parkour in Dying Light, tons of fun challenges you can do, but sometimes you just want to do a quest real quick, and spending 25 minutes going back and forth on a super simple fetch quest isn't really enhancing your experience. It's a matter of user experience really, giving your players an option. When you don't, you absolutely force them to experience the game strictly how you prefer it to be played, and don't get me wrong, you're fully entitled to do that, but a player is fully entitled to find it annoying as a result. What I loved about Spider-Man was its ability to admit that you can't always be asked to web swing across the map for 15 minutes. If you're not quite in the mood to go all the way to the top of the map and all the way back again, you can take the subway. You see a short animation of Spider-Man sitting on the subway, people giving him a confused look, maybe someone reading a paper, and then you pop out where you need to be. Fast travel at its finest. It's a beautiful option for someone who does really enjoy the traversal mechanics this game has to offer, but also kind of just wants to really quickly run over and do a quest before they have to go to bed. Thanks Spider-Man for admitting that sometimes you just kind of want to get somewhere fast. Shortly after the release of Marvel Spider-Man came 3 distinct DLCs: The Heist, Turf Wars, and Silver Lining. All 3 DLCs added their own distinct characters, storylines, and areas to explore. You get to finally meet Black Cat, a charming young lady who weirdly loves to fake pregnancy to get what she wants. There's Hammerhead, a frankly quite annoying boss who is otherwise your standard thug member, and there's Sable, a woman who is kind of over it all the time and is a little too busy running a multi-million-dollar munitions and mercenary company to deal with Spider-Man's attempts to break through her icy exterior. The DLCs have a lot of charm and all of their stories are developed. There's no tacked-on narrative, no weird story beats, although they all follow on from each other. They're episodic in how they are good, contained bits of game. You never get a sense that anything is missing. But this is a dislike, you say, so why am I being nice? Good, if not cynical question, but I'll humour you. Because remember all those outposts, all those crimes, all that busy work, all those challenges? Well, these DLCs add all that in again, and more. In the worst case scenario, it's about 10 hours of it per DLC, to be exact. Picture this, you finally drag yourself out of Spider-Man's Platinum Trophy. You've spent 20 hours actually playing the game, and another 20 hours doing mindless, repetitive shit cleanup. You've gone from finding this a pretty fun little experience, if you're me of course, to really, really souring on it. And you download these DLCs, and what's the first thing you see? 0 out of 5 crimes completed, 0 out of 5 screwball challenges, 0 out of 5 outposts. No, not again. As with the main game, the stories of these DLCs are absolutely drowned by the sheer amount of cleanup required. As with the main game, any enjoyment of these DLCs is absolutely overshadowed by knuckle-dragging busy work. Why? Who thought this was genuinely a fun and engaging idea? My god, I crawled through these DLCs so hard that my fingernails peeled off. It took every ounce of my being to get these done, not wanting this game to haunt me for another moment. And that's my review of Marvel Spider-Man. Trying to be as even as I can with this, I enjoyed Spider-Man for the most part, but my experiences getting the 100% boredom frustrated me so much that I ended up leaving it really disenfranchised. It's not a game I like nor would play again because of that, which is a shame, because I feel like with a proper fat trimming and some actual critical thought about how many crimes we should make the player prevent, it could have been really fun. I heard they addressed a lot of the issues with this in the Miles Morales game, but I am still on cooldown from the first a full year later, and it will probably be decades before I can even stomach going for the Miles Morales 100% now, but maybe one day. On the whole, a charming, polished, accessible game, but an arse-crustingly boring one. Still, I'll be grabbing the Autopop Platinum on the PS5 as soon as I physically can. Why not? Thanks for watching my review of Spider-Man. This was a requested video to celebrate my first 100 YouTube subscribers, and if you'd like to see me make a video to celebrate 250, then make sure to like this video and subscribe to me here on YouTube so I can eventually hit that goal. I put out gaming content as often as I can, usually every 1 to 2 weeks, including reviews, rankings, and general gaming discussions, so if that appeals to you, make sure to subscribe so that you'll never miss an upload from me. If you'd like to watch me sweat these games out live, check me out over on Twitch, where I stream 3 or 4 times a week at 7 PM BST. We trophy hunt hard over there, so bring your best platinums and we can talk all about them. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.